Corey. What's going on, brother?
A little bit of promotion. I got to move up front here this week, and lots of jiu-jitsu to talk about. So
That's right. Hal, our dear leader, is on vacation this week. We get very few pauses, very few breaks available, but he's taking one while he can here in between some major events. So the two of us will be keeping you company today. Now, like Corey said, coming off of a big week of jiu-jitsu, and it's kind of weird having WNO on a Wednesday because it feels so long ago, but we haven't had a podcast in between that event ending and a weekend. So we've got a lot to cover there. We had 3 new champions crowned at WNO, the return of Gordon Ryan. Gordon not being one of those, as he was in an exhibition match, and that played out in an interesting way that we can maybe get to a bit later. But I want to talk about the champs. So we saw a couple debuts as well for 2 of our champions, the first of which being Bia Mesquita, who claimed the 135-pound title. What did you make of Bia Mesquita's performance, Corey?
You know, Bia looked really patient, and like she was trying to set something up against Luisa Montero. And when she had the opportunity, she sprung at it. Those passes looked so sharp.
I think we had some clips of that too, by the way, Tyler, if you want to play those out. I also was super impressed. Like you said, Bia's top game looked phenomenal. We see her there. But all the credit to Luisa Montero, because as I think Kendall Rusing, who joined me on the commentator's booth that night, pointed out, not many people who get passed by Bia ever work back to any kind of defensive position. Luisa was able to do it throughout the course of this match. But we saw a couple huge moments from Bia Mesquita throughout, and overall, man, she absolutely deserves that title, Corey.
Yeah, and really the defining moments of the match coming up against the Who's Number One veteran, right? This was only the second match in Who's Number One history in the women's bantamweight division, and Luisa was in that only other match. But Bia, as you said, kind of just blasted through this, and for sure credit to Luisa, who was able to re-guard 3 times, recompose guard. She defended her back. She did really well, but Bia is one of the best ever, and she proved it yet again.
Yeah, Bia definitely is looking to remain active. You know, she told us after the event that she loved the show, can't wait to defend her title, and we're happy to have her back. Crazy stat that we learned before that match, that Bia and Luisa had fought close to 20 times, or possibly more, in the gi throughout their careers, both as color belts and in the black belt, but never once no gi.
Yeah, and I think that experience with each other kind of was the reason for the moments of kind of caginess during that match, is when you know an opponent as well as these two know each other, there's so many things that you feel like maybe you can't do or you can't get away with. So it led to kind of more of an outside fight, but when it came down to decisive moves, Bia had all of them.
Yeah, it was really interesting to watch Bia sort of gauge and adjust her approach. And once she found a sequence that she liked, she kept going back to the well and you know, basically secured a pass almost 3 times. 1 clean pass that I remember, then a couple near passes and a near back take, but pretty dominant showing overall for her. Our second champ that we need to talk about is Ffion Davies there, earning the flyweight strap against her match with Tata Ribeiro against Natalie. And that was not the match people expected, Corey.
Not at all. And not the match that Ffion expected. I think Ffion was expecting Natalie to pull guard and to play from the bottom most of the match. Natalie did not want anything to do with that. We got what I think is the best 15 minutes of wrestling in Who's Number One history. It was just back and forth wrestling exchanges. They were going after each other. Ffion was engaging a lot, but I was really impressed by Natalie's wrestling as well. Her wrestling counters looked phenomenal.
I agree. Her counter wrestling was unexpectedly good. I mean, Ffion pointed that too, and shows off that she's a really well-rounded grappler. Not that should be shocking, but still not what we expected. And like you said, I have to agree that is up there with one of the best ever exchanges on the feet we've seen at WNO. And the reason why, and this again came up on the broadcast a bit, was that when it's a bad stand-up match in jiu-jitsu, bad wrestling, there's a lot of non-committal action going on, a lot of slapping of the thighs, interlacing of the fingers, no one really level changing or committing or really going in on a shot. We saw tons of that in this match, and it was a lot of activity, Corey.
Yeah, Bia was changing levels a lot, and Natalie was staying really composed against, let's not forget, a black belt judoka in Ffion Davies, and standing with her, willing to fight for the top position, which, knowing how good Natalie's guard is, I think everybody, including Ffion, was surprised that Natalie didn't pull.
I agree. We actually talked, of course, to Ffion after the match, and we have a little clip of her interview where she reveals who she'd like to be her opponent when she defends her title at WNO. Let's go ahead and run that, Tyler.
So you got the strap. Now you're the champ. I guess you call the shots. Who do you want to defend against first?
First of all, I'd love to fight Bianca because as much I've got this title, but she can't be here. She's in Brazil, and I'm mindful of that. So I feel like right now, in my head, she's the champion. I have the belt, and I have to defend it, and I would love to defend it against her because she is, she beat me the last 2 times we fought. So she is. So she's my, as Natalie said about me, as I saw an interview, said something about daddy, I think she's my daddy at the moment, so I need to, I need to get a win back, hopefully. Or fighting her always makes me better, it pushes me to improve, so I'd love to fight her again, yeah.
Fiona's got like the best sense of humor, I think, in jiu-jitsu. Maybe even better than Craig's. I don't know. It's a bold claim.
It's definitely up there for sure.
She's fun, yeah. And very earnest personality. It shows both on and off the mats, and we can't wait to have Ffion back. Of course, she's got a busy schedule coming up, traveling around. I think she's going to be in New York for a week or so, and then going back to Ireland for a little while at the very least. So we hope to have her back soon, though, maybe early in 2022. Let's see if we can make that match with Bianca Basilio. I love that matchup. Bianca definitely seemed to have Fion's number earlier in her career, but Fion's been training hard.
Yeah, Ffion is looking better and better every time we see her. She's really climbing up there, but Bia is kind of the one that's got away, right? And that's the match I think everybody wants to see.
I agree. Now, our third champ, Mikey Musumeci, created a bit of controversy, a bit of a stir with his latest performance here. Of course, he came out ahead of the event, for those that didn't see, and announced he was going to debut a never-before-seen submission at WNO. It was his gift to jiu-jitsu. Corey, did it end up being that way?
Mikey for sure thinks so. It's a submission that he's maintaining is kind of a new attack, has new grips, has a new sequence, and it's something that kind of the jiu-jitsu community at large is saying, well, we've seen this before. We've
run
seen
around
this,
to north-south,
10,
which
15
is
years
able
ago.
to do so well.
Mikey said he'll release something later today about what makes this technique different.
Kendall,
One way or another, it was
exchanges
outstanding.
so
The
far.
fact that he was able to pull this off in 57
We're seeing him coming in
seconds.
here really,
Yeah,
really tight
great
on the
point.
leg.
That some of the controversy here over the specifics may overshadow the fact that Mikey looked flawless. I mean, a beautiful entry there. Just took one shot, one real sequence of techniques to earn him a submission in less than a minute and claimed a 135 title. Yeah, but I think it's hard to come out with a new technique, especially a joint lock. I think it might be easier. This is kind of getting off track, but is it easier to maybe create a choke than it is a joint lock? I feel like I could come up with a brand new choke no one's ever seen before. Double gokoplata from the back. No one's done that.
Okay.
Actually,
Yeah.
it might exist, but I don't know.
It is interesting though. This is really the first time I've seen this done in competition. We've seen, we saw after Mikey pulled this off, Instagram clip on Instagram clip of this being done in training, in instructionals, in competition, but nobody has done it on the scale, on the stage that Mikey was able to pull this off and with the speed. Right, so I'm sure when Mikey releases a video, he might clear up what he believes is specifically the Mikey lock versus all these other head, neck trap based foot locks that we've seen. But yeah, I think the scale of this has has some merit.
It's created some conversation that's pretty fun. Let's run a few of these clips. We've dove through the Instagram archives here, and many people have responded to Mikey in one way or the other. Junie Ocasio being one of the loudest, saying that I've absolutely done this before. Go ahead and check out Junie's page if you want to, get a little bit of a deeper dive on some of these. Here we have, I think, Riley Bodycomb in this next clip that will be showing off. Hopefully, we get some audio in this. It's always a little bit of a gamble here when you're doing the Instagram import, but let's run it. So I think we're going to fill some time here. But in any case, Corey.
Yeah.
Is a discussion a good thing? Is this sort of friction in the community overall maybe leading to a positive direction?
I mean, I think anytime you take a technique and you try and name it, right? Look at, any of the 10 planet techniques. They have their own name. They might not be brand new. Nobody's maintaining that they're brand new, but this is kind of the nomenclature, right? This is what the 10 planet team calls this specific technique or set of techniques or, position. Any specific way of naming a position is really just a reference point, right? Because you can't own a bodily movement, right? It's mechanics. It's just, but having a reference point, like I've called it the Mikey Lock 6 times this week just in training because it's easy. It rolls off the tongue and everybody knows what you're talking about, and that's ultimately, what it boils down to.
And let's not forget, Junie and Mikey, of course, have some personal heat here, maybe in a very professional sense, but they had a match, right? And Junie wants that win back. He lost to Mikey by decision at WNO not that long ago, and certainly has to feel some of his desire to sort of say, no, I've been there before, I've done this before, and I'm not alone.
Sure, and I think he for sure wants that match back, right? And looking at someone like Mikey, who has been very public about the fact that this is really his first 6 months in no-gi in something like 6 years, right? And that he's brand new to the heel hook game. Somebody like Junie, who's very studied in heel hooks, has been playing heel hooks and leg locks for the last 5-6 years, is definitely going to feel maybe a little territorial about that space, especially when he's got evidence that he's done that technique before or something very similar.
Yeah, and there were a lot of big names. We saw, I think even Braulio Stima had a clip that he was saying was pretty similar. So it's been around, but I think this Instagram clip may be working now. Tyler, can we give that a go?
A little bit because he's probably been a little bit. Like that.
This is from Riley Body.
What I'm going
right?
to do is get my forehead to the mat, and catch his toes the back of my head. My forehead to the mat, and look up, and it's going to catch his toes the back of my head. He's going to start trying to bend his knee. It doesn't matter. In fact, the more he bends, the worse this will be. I'm not going to try to straighten. I'm just going to grab his heel with my top hand and rotate it this side. Essentially ends up being an inverted heel. Here he crosses ankles, like anyone's going to do if they're trying to defend a V-bar. And then basically do the same thing. First I have to clear that top leg. So I'm going to fall to my side, grab that top foot, clear it over my knee. Switch my hand up by his ankle, throw my head over the toes. Grab that heel again, take the heel extend. You're here, like that, clear, switch, there, head to the mat. Look up, grab that heel to the side.
So this is Riley Body comes twisting knee bar, but here's one from Boss Rutan, even going back maybe 20, 25 years at this point.
Boss, a true legend of the game, releasing some of my favorite early instructional material. What was that, like bar fighting instructional he put out? Did you ever see that?
Yeah, fighting in a restaurant or something.
I might have downloaded that on LimeWire as a young man, but Boss, also a very legitimate martial artist. Here we see him applying, again, similar mentality, similar approach by using the face and head, neck area to isolate this attack, Corey.
Now, this is interesting. That this is an outside heel hook, right? This is a little bit of a different technique, but really the same mechanics. It's using a post and a frame on the bottom to turn the heel and using your head to turn the toes.
Very cool. And like we were saying earlier, whether or not Mikey has truly revolutionized a new technique, what it's done, I think, is reinvigorated an approach that I don't think is super common. I don't recall seeing this every night at Fight to Win, or it's the first time it's really made it showing at WNO. So who knows? Maybe it will, again, stimulate some sort of new popularity of this technique.
And one of the things Mikey has stayed on is that let's leave the naming of the technique aside for a second. This is going to fix problems for grapplers who are having problems finish with the breaking mechanics of the technique when they get to the leg. So I'm sure that holds true, that this is a real problem solver if you're having trouble transitioning the foot underneath the armpit, for example.
Very cool. And I do believe, as well as Mikey perhaps going on his own social today and discussing it, I think he is slated tentatively to be on the WNO podcast this Wednesday, where I'm sure that will be a big focus of attention. So stay tuned for that if you have more questions about the Mikey lock. Here we are, though, getting into, I think, one of the most exciting parts of today's podcast. We've got an exclusive. ADCC trials, typically the competitors list is hotly, or I guess very tightly kept secret. Does not come out until the day before, if that. And we have the dirt. We've got the names. And we're not going to release all of them, but over the course of this week, we will be able to, with the partnership and approval of Mo Jassim, of course, ADCC World's tournament organizer, and Tom DeBlas, the East Coast Trials organizer. They've helped us out with this and given us their approval to release these names over the week. So every division will have a couple key players announced. Today, we're going to kick things off with the 66 kilogram division. And it is crazy how stacked this division is. And we have 4 names for you on this podcast that we can share that should definitely, I think, whet the appetite for those who are looking forward to this tournament. Let's go ahead and roll this clip and jump in. First player here that we're going to be talking about is Mr. Cole Abate. That's right. The teenage phenom is going to do trials. Corey, how does that make you feel?
Oh, man, I can't wait to see. Cole Abate has been chomping at the bit to face the best of the best, right? And we got a glimpse of it right here at Who's Number One Championships just a couple of weeks ago. But this is really his first opportunity to dive into a tournament with 150 of the best in the 145-pound division, 66-kilogram division, and show us exactly what his jiu-jitsu is worth, right?
That's right. We'll talk more about Cole in a second here, but we also have Damian Anderson, who is jumping into trials. He announced that on WNO, but that has become official now, and that was his first win at WNO there. So Damian Anderson from B Team will be present in the 66-kilogram division at East Coast Trials. There's the guy we were just talking about, Juni Ocasio, one of the very best at this weight class, is also in for trials. Corey, how does Juni's chances stand?
Juni's done the trials a couple times in the past, but I think this has really been kind of the last 2 years has been his breakout year, and with his depth of knowledge, not just in the submission game but in the rules set, I think he stands to do very well in this division.
I agree. And our last name that we can release on this podcast is none other than Gianni Grippa. Now, Gianni, no stranger to competitions of all formats and criteria, has been going through a bit of a renaissance in his career here as a veteran black belt, become a savage finisher as evidenced by this heel hook there from Emerald City Invitational earlier this year, or actually not that long ago, just a couple months ago. Gianni has gone on to do extremely well in the IBJJF Nogi circuit and has been active on the pro scene as well. Gianni Grippo also, I think, stands a very strong shot, Corey. Another person with familiarity with the rule set, world's veteran.
Let's not forget, Gianni Grippo was an ADCC veteran, right? He showed up on that stage. He looked pretty good against Richard Alarcon, and I think some of the lessons he learned in his debut at ADCC are only going to push him forward. He's clearly shown that this has been one of maybe his most competitive years. He's been almost entirely undefeated all year in Nogi. Looking phenomenal.
Well put. So we kind of ran through those names, we went through those clips, but let's bring it back a little bit, back to Cole, and then we can work our way through that. So Cole Abate, I think, blew some minds at WNO. There were, in the beginning, lots of eyebrows raised. Why would Cole be invited to such a thing? He's a blue belt teenager. Then the day of the competition, he put his foot down and said, this is exactly why I'm here, with that outstanding performance against Gio Martinez and the very, very hotly contested match with Gabriel Souza. Can Cole go all the way at this thing, Corey?
Well, let's not forget, Gio Martinez is a multiple-time trials winner, right? So Cole Abate has shown the ability to beat the people that have won that tournament. Now, different rule set of Who's Number One than ADCC trials, but I think Cole is so competent in grappling as a whole that he for sure can win this event. And let's not forget also, I mean, 5-6 years ago, right? You look at a teenager entering this tournament and think there's no way. I'm sorry, you're a good grappler, but no way. Now we've seen it done, right? We've seen it done by Nicky Ryan. Ty Rutola did really well at trials. Cade Rutola did really well at trials. Especially in this division, the teenagers have shown that they can thrive.
Yeah, well put. Plus, when we're talking about game plans, there's really, I think, few better coaches to have than Guy Mendes, who will absolutely be giving Cole the right program, the right mentality to come out here with a strong fighting chance. And like you said, with over 150 competitors in this division, that's an insane challenge ahead for anybody. But I am very excited to see how Cole does. The next athlete, I think, definitely a breakout star this year, Damian Anderson. I would say he would be a dark horse of the division. You know, definitely not someone that would be picked as a favorite, but can beat any of the names given the right chance, the right moment there. Where do you think Damian falls into the pack here at 66?
I mean, Damian's shown off his wrestling abilities. He's shown off his finishing abilities, right? Let's jump back to Emerald City quickly, where he submitted Richard Alarcon and Gabriel Souza. So I think he's gonna do best against the people who maybe underestimate him. But he'll do very well in that tournament. It's 150 names, so no way of telling what round any of these athletes might drop off. But I think he'll go far.
Yeah, those first round matchups are potentially going to be insane. One thing to note about Damian that he brought up after his performance at the WNO last week where he beat Esteban Martinez, was he's been going through a lot of changes, right? He just joined B Team, he just moved to Austin, Texas. So ahead of the WNO championships, where he had a lackluster performance, he was in the middle of a lot of transitions in his life. He's feeling a bit more settled now, and he'll have a few more weeks to even do that a bit further ahead of trials. So who knows what version of Damian Anderson we could see. Maybe it's the best ever. Junio Ocasio, like you mentioned, a veteran of ADCC, and now someone that's at the very top, really, of his weight class, one of the best in the world. You mentioned the rule set being maybe a key factor for Junie here. What tweaks might Junie make in his game to do well under ADCC?
We've seen that when Junie wrestles and he wrestles up, he can hang in there, right? He can scrap with the best of them. A lot of times we see Junie wanting to play more of a leg lock oriented game, or at least a guard oriented game. But I think the more he plays on top or is willing to come up to the top, the better off he'll be, especially against people who know what to expect against a guy like Junie.
That's right. That's right. Closing things off here with Gianni Grippo, our last debut of the day. Like we said, a veteran of ADCC Worlds, a veteran of basically every event in the world, a long-time black belt, but having perhaps one of the most exciting moments of his career right now. A very exciting phase for Gianni Grippo. I'm excited to see what he can do at trials. He's got all the tools, the right training to do it, and I think he wants to come out and make a statement. So let's see. And let's remind folks now, every day for the rest of this week, we will have at least 4 names being released going to trials. So stay tuned Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. There'll be more information each day. Very excited. And, of course, trials goes down just next week. I mean, it's right around the corner, Corey.
Yeah, it's coming up and coming up fast. More than 800 competitors signed up across the weight division. So it's going to be a loaded 2-day event this time around in Atlantic City.
Yes, it is. Well, before we move on, let's say moving on. There was also a lot of jiu-jitsu internationally, over the weekend. So we should touch on some of those key results. AJP Tour had a big event down in Brazil. Tell me something that stands out from that, Corey.
How do you not start this conversation with Mika Galvao? Won the welterweight division, 5 matches, 5 submissions. Somehow that's not surprising about Mika.
No, Mika, of course, been on the top of our tongues for maybe 5 years now, but especially so as he's made his way over to the North American scene. Now he's back in Brazil and doing what he does best, submitting everyone. Really, really strong showing from Mika, as well as some of the other lighter weight class fighters, Corey, who else had some standout performances.
Yeah, another one of the Brazilian Fight Sports representatives, Fabricio Andre, looked great. He had 2 submissions in his 5-man division, and he beat Mayram Alves in the final, looking great at, I believe that was the lightweight division. Fabricio and Mayram have kind of been going back and forth, but Fabricio is starting to get the better of this rivalry. I think it's important to, speaking of rivalries, especially at AJP, talk about Yara Soares, too, who beat Gabby Pisania. Not her first time beating Gabby, but she's the only person to beat Gabby multiple times. They've been going back and forth, but Yara has gotten the better of Gabby now 3 times in the last 3 matches. Last time Gabby won was at Pan. So
that's really interesting, because wasn't Gabby Pisania undefeated for like 20-plus matches minimum not that long ago?
Yeah, and the first person to beat her was Yara, and Yara has won some and lost some against Gabby, but Yara really seems to be figuring out how to handle the problem that is Gabby Pisania.
Very interesting. Strong showing from the Dream Art team in general. We had Eric Muniz take light heavyweight gold. Azaki Bahayens took gold in super heavyweight.
Super heavyweight.
Wow,
Yeah.
I didn't. That didn't quite register when I read that earlier today. So yeah, going up a weight class or 2. Some other key title holders were Brenda Larissa, Anna Rodriguez, Julia Alves, Larissa De Almeida, all winning gold in their respective categories. We also saw an event with a little bit of a twist here at Fena Jitsu. Corey, what went down there?
Yeah, this one in Brazil as well, run by the guys who own Big Deal Pro. Really interesting kind of interpretation or tweak on the rule format. The main event were all best of 3, so 3 5-minute rounds. The winner of 2 out of 3 was the winner of the match. It paid off well for Bianca Basilio, her first no-gi competition since ADCC, by the way.
Oh, wow.
She submitted her opponent twice, once with a Kimura and I believe once from the back. Izaki Bahayens defeated Leo Lara with a submission and 1 points victory. Lucas Gualberto, Alex Muniz, and Servio Tulio also won. But I don't know what to make of this rule set. This was down in Brazil on Tuesday, no less. But how the best of 3 format, like the rounds format, right, similar to an MMA 3 5-minute rounds, works out for jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I'd love to see it more. Did you happen to know if a round ended submission? That's over, right? They don't keep going in that round. That's like a
that round is over, but there's
right.
another round
Okay.
in the match.
I like it. I really enjoy that jiu-jitsu has so many instantiations and different rules because it allows people to explore different strategies. You see different game plans. So very cool. Also, another show exploring the weekday format. I guess that went down on a Tuesday. So I love it. I love to see it. We had some other key results that came into the weekend. Hanato Kanuta took home first place in a Third Coast Grappling mega bracket. I believe it was the middleweights. Really, really nice showing from him. I think 4 fights there for that one. And then in the Nashville Open, so, a little bit of an eye-opening result here is we had Larissa Campos take out Tammy Musumeci there in the featherweight final. Larissa, very, very accomplished athlete, one of the best right now. But Tammy, of course, world champion, really, really dominant. So interesting result there. We also saw Tynan Dalbra and Jonathan Alves from AOJ do their thing, taking home more golds, and Gabriel Almeida took home gold in the no-gi open class.
In the gi open too, shocking to see that Alexander Trans has made his way back to the States. He lost to Rafael dos Anjos in the absolute final, but maybe tuning himself up a little bit for Worlds.
I hope so, man. He's a monster, and he's been out for a little while. I think he's been up in Dallas. I want to say he's got a gym up there, but have yet to see him really return to the circuit. Of course, the circuit has looked very different lately as well. So, very interesting stuff. Moving right along, then we also had one major event on our platform over the weekend. EUG was back, and a name that's becoming a weekly feature at FloGrappling, Diego Pato was coming out on top there. How did Pato's road fare there, Corey?
So speaking of interesting rule sets, EUG, as we discussed last week, had this nice little tweak on the rule that changed some things up. Right, no guard pulling was allowed for the first 3 minutes of any round, and fortunately for us, we got to see some of Pato's wrestling. He's been working it down in Jersey at a wrestling academy in Hoboken, and paid off, especially I think in the match against Gabriel Souza. It was a back and forth exchange, as a match between those two always is, but the wrestling really paid off for him in the match against Gianni Grippo. He scored an early double leg on Gianni, and that was enough to put him ahead.
That's right. That's right. And very, very exciting news was that Pato announced in his post-event interview that he is targeting the Brazilian trials that are set to go down next year for ADCC. That would be, I think he stands a great shot of winning that. Like you said, a phenomenal wrestling, also a finisher, can wrestle up, can play off his back. He has all the tools required. He's having actually an incredible year when you take a step back and look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a no-gi pan champion. He's a pan champion. He's now a no-gi world champion. He took third at the Who's Number One championships. Now he's got EUG. I was thinking about this last night. He's earned almost $20,000 in just prizes in the last month.
That's not a bad take.
Yeah.
It's not a bad haul for old Pato over there. You love to see it. You love to see people getting paid for jiu-jitsu and, doing it in such exciting fashion, too. So Pato definitely on the radar there for maybe having one of the best years in right now in 2021 and setting himself up for an exciting 2022 there with that Brazilian trials announcement that he made. Speaking of upcoming events, we touched on it earlier, but just to remind you, ADCC Trials is coming next weekend. That's November 6th. It's going to actually be November 6th and 7th, the first time Trials has ever been run over 2 days, just because the sheer number of competitors involved. That should give you an idea of why we're so excited. I mean, some divisions have 150. There's a couple divisions that have over 200 athletes. That could be 7 or 8 matches to win gold.
Yeah,
that's a hell of a weekend.
It's as much as a jiu-jitsu competition as a marathon for the people in those divisions.
And as some of those names we mentioned earlier should give you any indication of the talent involved. There are some of the very best. No one's waiting for an invite this year. Everyone is showing up for trials, and if they're not doing the East Coast trials, they're for sure going to be at the West Coast trials. So it's a very exciting time as the road to ADCC continues, and we're going to be on the ground doing what we do best, giving you guys a live coverage. I won't be there though because I'm the only member of the team I think is staying behind. I've got to commentate. BJJ Stars also going on that weekend. BJJ Stars is back. I'll be here in the commentary booth with Shanji Ribeiro, so I'm very excited for that. That is going to be a super fun card. Main event is now, I want to say, Gilbert Burns versus Benson Henderson. Originally was slated for Roberto Jimenez. Benson has stepped up. So very interesting card all around there. We have AJ Agazarm is back on the card for BJJ Stars, as well as Tanquino is going to be down there. I hope they don't run into each other backstage. But Overall, very exciting stuff. That's BJJ starts 7. I want to say Josh Hinger is on the card. A lot more coming there, but definitely excited for that. I should have mentioned this perhaps first, but going down this week, we have UWW Worlds. So very unique format there. If you haven't ever caught a UWW grappling event, it's kind of a hybrid of wrestling with submissions and a really, really different, I would say, roster of athletes, guys that we really don't feature that much because they're over in Russia and really far-flung corners of the earth. But they all come together for these UWW World Championships, and it's a pretty dramatic event. They have gi, they have no gi, and it's over the course of 4 days. It starts on Thursday, so WNO alum Luis Quinones is going to be there representing Team USA. And I'm excited to see it all shakes out. You guys can also follow the action live on Flow Arena. So if you don't have time to tune in every day, you can go through the brackets and kind of follow along and see what matches may have been the most exciting. So that starts on Thursday and runs through the weekend. Also, a couple more events around the corner. We've got Grapple Fest is back. Corey, who's coming to Grapple Fest?
So it's a stacked, loaded card, but I think the 3 matches I'm tuning in for absolutely. Dante Leon versus Oliver Taza, Ty Russolo versus Nick Ronan, and Cade Russolo, Keith Krikorian. So both Russolo bros will be back on Grapple Fest. They I think the last time Grapple Fest had an event, they that's right, Ty fought Dante. Yeah, but we're gonna see I think a lot of action from these matches over in England. They tend to be real good scraps, and I think especially a match between Cade and Keith, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, that's a banger for sure. We also have the debut of a brand new event on FloGrappling, Raw Grappling. It's their first show, the base there, and I want to say Ireland. They're going to have Rafael Lovato Jr. versus Adam Wardzinski in a no-gi super fight in their main event, as well as a pretty stacked bracket. I want to say a no-gi heavyweight or open weight bracket that's coming your way. That's going to go down November 14th. Stay tuned as we get more details about the rest of that card as they come in. And finally, very excited that we have 2 massive IBJJF events around the corner. We have Masters Worlds that goes down November 11th through the 13th, and that includes 2 Grand Prix, which I think will be very dramatic preview of what we could see at the World Championships. Worlds goes down just 1 month later, December 9th through the 12th. And I can tell you the office is alight with excitement for that event. We've got a lot of things planned for the World Championships. It's always one of our favorites. It's great to have it back after a year off. Corey, how pumped are you for you? It's gonna be your first Worlds, isn't it?
My first Worlds here for sure, and I felt
that
kind
flow.
of.
I mean, yeah.
I felt kind of robbed last year not to be able to make it. I'm sure everybody did, right? But this World Championships is 2 years in the making. IBJJF's 25th anniversary of the World Championships. It's how can you not be excited about Worlds?
Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, a bit of a quick one today, but that was your Grappling Bulletin. Stay tuned for all the news, live events, and content you love on our platform. Get the app if you don't have it. And we'll see you next week. Also, tune in for the WNO podcast on Wednesday and hear Mikey Musumeci's argument for why he did indeed invent the Mikey Lock. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.